Hi everyone, this is Ebong. I wanted to show you how to file Form 4868, which is an application for an automatic extension for a U.S. individual. Now, there's two things here to think about. If you are a professional, or not a professional, but if you have a company, say you're a single member LLC, independent contractor, or even just an individual with W-2 income, you want to make sure you file your extension form. I talk about this a little earlier in this video as to the reasons why you want to file and some of the things to consider and be concerned with when filing out your extension. Now, the extension's due April 18th, and you only have a few days and it has to be postmarked on April 18th. The other thing to know or to note is you can also pay by credit or debit card by phone or over the internet with the IRS. Um, if you owe money, and that's why this is important, you should pay. If you don't owe any money, you should still file your extension, regardless of whether or not you have the money to pay or if you're expecting a refund. You want to make sure you file the extension because you want to make sure that you want to make sure your return is not late. Um, Filing a paper extension is not that hard. It's very simple actually, and you get an automatic 6 months extension to file. So your return will be due October 17th, but you don't want to procrastinate. Now, before you go there, you want the biggest key is that you need to know whether or not you owe money. And in order to do that, you have to figure out or find out or roughly estimate what your total tax liability is per Part 2 of the 4868 right here. You see that right there. Okay, so I have a little spreadsheet that will actually work together to show that. As we go here, say you're a single member LLC or independent contractor and you have money coming in. The first thing you have to calculate is your self-employment tax. That's really important, and I hope I don't confuse you, but I'll give you ways to follow up with me if you have more questions about this or if you want me to review what you've calculated. First thing is these are all hypothetical numbers. Let's pretend that you have 75,000 in gross income from the business, okay? And these are all your business expenses. Again, these are all an estimate. Healthcare, mileage, business operating costs. That could be lease, rent, or whatever else you have in there. Your hypothetical net income is $51,000. Okay. Now you have to calculate what your self-employment tax would be based on that. In this case, you automatically get for 2010 you have a deduction of half of the self-employment tax. So that's what that 92.3% of this number is. That's what that equals. Okay. And this spreadsheet automatically does. All you have to do is plug in the numbers, and it automatically populates it for you. So as of the 51,200, $47,283 is subject to self-employment tax. Okay, your Medicaid percentage is 2.9%, and 2.9% of the 47 is this. You have Social Security, which is 12.4%, and 12.4% of the 47,000 is $5,800. So your total self-employment tax is $7,200. Now this says for the quarter, but in reality it's for the year. So I'll even remove this. Okay. I literally just use this for another client. So there we go. Because $7,200 is what you have to pay for self-employment tax, and that's supposed to be due by April 18th, just for self-employment. We haven't done your individual yet. Now the good news is for self-employment tax, you also get a deduction for your Medicare and your Social Security that was paid. So this equates to half, if you can see that there. It's half of the Medicare, okay? And this is also half of your Social Security. So there you go, roughly half, 59.6%. So of the 7,200, you get a deduction of 4,000. So if you think about it, it's 7,200 subtract that. That's about 3,000 and change. Okay, so these are the numbers you need from a business perspective. Now you have to go to your regular for your personal return, your 1040. Now this is your net profit or net business income. Okay, of 51,000. That number, as you saw, comes from up here up top, right? The next line is your deduction for Medicare and Social Security. We just talked about that number that's referenced to here. That's the number that comes right there, $4,100. You get a deduction for that from that amount. Okay. And again, this is estimated. You're not really sure. This is estimated. The second piece is your personal exemption from your personal tax return is for 2010 is $3,700. You get a deduction for that, decrease in your tax base from that. And your standard deduction. Now, the standard deduction will vary. That can change. There are a lot of people who have itemized deductions. The standard deduction is for people who don't have anything to itemize. If you have anything to itemize, this number is going to be higher. For example, mortgage interest, real estate taxes paid, state income taxes or state income taxes or sales tax, charity, gifts to charity or donations, anything, your medical expenses that are above the 7.5% of AGI. Let's see, what else? Your miscellaneous itemized deductions that are above the 2% of AGI. There are all these multiple things that you may be able to deduct. Okay, so say you only have these three. Your estimated taxable income is $37,000 now, and I hope this makes sense as you're looking at this. Okay, we look at the tax rate per the schedule. Okay, so this is for your personal side. That's why these brackets are here. This is for the personal. So because of that, it's the sum. This equals the sum of this, or sorry, the 51,000 minus your deductions and expenses that you can take on your personal. This is going to come from your tax rate schedule, and the tax rate schedule is from the tax table. Pull it up from the tax table. Okay, our number is 37,519. So I find 37,000 per the tax table. This is all from the IRS website. 37,519. It's 37,500. It's in between these two. Okay. Sorry, in between here. So if you're single, in the case that you're single, this would be the tax for the single file. If you're filing single, if you go to the top, you see there you go, and you are single. That's it right there. So that number, your tax based on this income range is 5,563. Now let's go back to, hold on. Yep, 5,556. There we go. So this would be 5,563. So this is your tax for your income tax on your personal side. Okay. So what's going to happen is your total taxes that are supposed to be paid in that are due is basically 12,797. Now the 12,797 is a sum of this and the sum of this. So those two are added together to get you to $12,797. Now, this looks like a lot of money based off of the 37,000, but you also have to understand you've taken partly deductions there. This part of this money, a good chunk of this money, is going to Medicare and Medicaid. Okay, so you're paying. You get a deduction on your personal return, but you're also paying into Medicare and Medicaid. If you had W-2 income, that automatically comes off the top, and you don't even get to see it. So we know now this is your total estimated taxes due. Now the rule is you're supposed to have at least 90% of your current tax liability paid into the IRS by the time you file your extension. 90%. If not, you're subject to a penalty, which I talked about earlier. Now that we've calculated what your estimated taxes will be due for your 2010 tax return, let's go to the form. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Let's go to the form. The form here, very simple. You put in your name, John Q. Smith. Okay, your address, 1234, any place, street. Let's just make sure I hit the red lines. Any place, street. Okay, the city is anywhere, or actually any town. Okay, and the state will say DC. Zip code 20001. Let's change this to Washington. Okay. Social Security number 123 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Very simple. You have no spouse, you're filing single. This literally took a few minutes to fill this in. This is your identification for part 1. Very simple. Now your estimate of total tax liability for 2010. This is the number we just computed or figured out on the Excel spreadsheet. Now let's go back. This is the number, $12,797. We're going to skip the cents because it doesn't really matter. So that's a number. This number right here is a number we're going to put on that form. So let's go back to that form. So it's 12,000. Hold on. Let's make sure this works. 12,797. Okay. Total payments. Did you make any payments throughout the year? Maybe you paid quarterly and you're supposed to because you can get a penalty if you did not. Let's assume you paid $10,000 into the IRS during the year, over the quarter. So every quarter you paid $2,500. If that's the case, your total payments per year for 2010 are going to be, we'll say $10,000 total. So we'll put $10,000. Okay. Your balance due. Now with your balance due, basically per year, as you see here, it says you subtract line 5 from line 4. So the $12,797 subtract 10,000. So your total, your remaining is $2,797. Okay, and now we'll put in the amount you're paying. Now, if you can, I would say pay everything in at once so you don't have any situations or any problems. So what you would say is, I am going to pay what I owe, which is the total amount, which is $27.97. There we go. Now for part 2, line 8, check here if you're out of the country and a U.S. citizen. It's not applicable. Check here if you file a 1040 NR or NR Easy. Basically, the 1040 is the NR is the non-resident. That's if you're a non-resident for tax purposes, and you tend to be a foreigner, and that may not apply to you. So you skip all this, and there you are. You're done. That's literally how quickly you can file your own 4868. The key here, though, is figuring out your tax liability. That's where the problem and the rub is. Okay, using the schedule, this spreadsheet that I have, it'll help you do that. Now, the instructions are attached to this. It's only a 4-page document. It talks about all the late filing penalties, late payment penalties, and the interest and everything else that's assumed. Now, the key is sending this in. How do I send this in to the IRS? Okay, this is all the other stuff. This is where the addresses, where you can find the addresses based on where you live. Per this example, we live in Washington, D.C. So if that's the case, Washington, D.C. is right here, District of Columbia. Okay, so as you saw here, District of Columbia is here. Where to file the paper form 4868. I live in D.C. Sorry, I live in D.C. So therefore, I will address this to P.O. Box 970028, St. Louis, Missouri 63197-028. And if I'm not making and that's if you're making a payment. So you have to know the distinction between whether you're making a payment or whether you're not making a payment. If you're making a payment, you send it to the St. Louis P.O. Box office. Okay, per this example. And if I'm not making a payment, I'm sending it directly to the Treasury. This is the only address I need to put on here. So it'll say Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service Center, Kansas City, Missouri. That's it right there. Okay? And that's basically it. What I also suggest you do is send it registered mail or some type of certified mail so you have documentation that it was sent and postmarked. That's going to be your proof. In the event the IRS says you never received it, you can say, I did send it. Here's a copy of my certified mail or registered mail, and there it is. Because you need to make sure that it's postmarked and sent by April 18th. Okay? These are all other options in which you can send it, which is DHL, FedEx, or UPS. I think the Postal Service is fine. It's cheaper, and it gets there the same amount of time. Lastly, in this particular case, let's just double back. I want to make sure how you make a payment with your application. You can try it online. You may have some problems. I've had other clients tell me they had problems, so you may do it online. However, paying by check is fine because it gives you more time if you think about it. As long as it's postmarked in the mail, it's accepted. Okay, so if you pay by check, you have a couple of days to float until the IRS receives it and then deposits the check and then withdraws it from your fund. So that's something to think about. But make sure you look at this. You make your check or money order payable to United States Treasury. Don't send cash. Make sure you also write on there your Social Security number, daytime telephone number, and and 1040 form 4868 on the check or money order. You can do it on the little section towards the bottom of the left, and don't staple it to the form. Okay, that's basically it in a nutshell. That's basically how you file. You print this out, cut this little form thing out, all this, cut it out, cut it off the paper, attach the check, or I put the check in the envelope. Write all the information that I mentioned earlier, on the check, and go to the post office and mail it accordingly. You can find this form at the irs.gov website. That's it right there. Very simple. The tax table, you can easily find it at the irs.gov website as well. That's it right there, okay, to determine what you need to do. And that's basically it. But make sure, the takeaway is this. Make sure you file an extension at a minimum. Even if you know you owe money and you can't pay it, file the extension because it will give you more time to file. At least you will knock off one of the penalties. Now, anything that I can help you with, please reach out to me and ask me any questions. If you want the form, I can give you the form as well as review the information that you have so that I see that it kind of makes sense. It's not an endorsement, but you'll have another set of eyes to make sure that to give you more comfort that what you're doing is right or it makes sense. Okay. Now, the whole point is I'm trying to speak a financial language that we all can understand.